Hancock Jane Doe, identified as Doreen M. Tiedman. In Greenville, Tennessee, which is in Hancock County, in October of 1994, a woman was found underneath a wooden bridge. They believe she'd been there for several months before she was found, and she was likely 5'1" to 5'4". They believe she was between 30 to 50 years old, and they knew she had short brown hair. If they could tell what happened to her, they haven't released it. In hopes of answering a question about who she was, Hancock County investigators did a clay recreation in 2009, which by then was a cold case for 15 years. It would turn out it was a pretty accurate rendering of the woman, although it would take 28 years, almost to the day, for Doreen Teedman from Cleveland, Ohio, to get her name back. It would turn out that Dorothy was a frequent hitchhiker, and that brings us back to the discussions we've had on here many times about whether people were still hitchhiking in the 1990s, and clearly they were. It's said that Dorothy was a free spirit who liked to travel this way. The last time her family heard from her, it was in 1994, in January. It was 9 months later, in October of 1994, that she was found. It's believed that at the time her focus was simply traveling the U.S. She only made it about 500 miles away from home, however, until whatever it was happened to her led to her losing her life. Doreen Teedman went unidentified for 28 years. If she lived, she would be 63 today. The Monroe County John Doe, identified as Steven Gabbard. In a remote area near Bloomington, Indiana, in May of 2004, a man was out turkey hunting near Lake Lemon off Richardson Road in Monroe County. He had been walking through a wooded area searching for birds, and instead he found a man who they estimated had been there for maybe 8 to 15 months. An examination indicated that he'd been shot twice at close range. He was likely East Asian, Hispanic, or Native American, and they believed he was around 55 to 70. Little other evidence was found, and they did note that he had a well-healed boxer's fracture in his right hand, and rib fractures that had healed months before. Without leads, his case was reduced to a binder on a shelf in the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. He had, for a long time, remained there. That is, until a detective named Alexander Hahn took it upon himself to change that. He would later tell the Herald-Times that there wasn't so much as a trace left behind as to who the man was, or who did it to him. After results of the new interest, Monroe County Sheriff's Office commissioned a clay rendering and later a drawing. Sadly, neither led to an identification. Like so many cases, it took genetic genealogy to be able to finally identify the man. And with this, once again, Steven Gabbard had his name. It turns out he was reported missing by his family on June 20th, 2002. There's some conflicting information on the case, so he was either 38 or 39, which obviously places him under the 55 to 70 age they had calculated. He was last seen in Indianapolis, Indiana, although he was actually from Louisville, Kentucky. The sheriff's office would say the investigation is far from finished. Now they must find his killer, saying, "It's an ending, but it's also a beginning." Anyone with information is asked to contact the sheriff at the number listed. Steven Gabbard was missing for 20 years, and an unidentified John Doe for 18. The Houston Jane Doe, identified as Stephanie Merrill. Stephanie Merrill was 27 when she disappeared from Houston, Texas, on August 26, 2018. She was last seen near the Legacy Inn on Tidwell Road in downtown Houston. While she was reported missing, no one was quite sure what she was wearing when she disappeared, or really any other further information. Unbeknownst to them, she was found in a field in a wooded area of Houston, Texas, in October of 2020. She would eventually be identified in July of 2022, but as of this recording, she's gone unclaimed. As of November of 2022, her name as file is still active. If I find that anything's changed after this recording, you'll see an editor's note appear on the screen. Otherwise, she is still unclaimed. This seems unusual. There was a prayer vigil held for her. She was reported missing. She was clearly loved and missed, so I'm not sure why she hasn't been claimed. And I'll admit that it bothers me. Stephanie Merrill was missing for 4 years. She went unidentified as a Jane Doe for almost 2. Channahon Jane Doe, identified as Donald Rozek. In 1974, some hunters were walking near the junction of I-55 and 1080 southwest of Chicago, Illinois, near Channahon. As they walked, they happened to look down into a creek bed, and they made a disturbing discovery. In the creek bed were the remains of a man who they believe had been there for about 2 years. They placed his age at 35 to 55, and he was around 5'10". He was wearing a black sweater, blue jeans, and size 9 work boots. His cause of death has never been released. They made a recreation and generated general DNA for CODIS. Over the years, the Will County Sheriff's Office would compare his dental records to over 80 missing persons, but there was never a match. His DNA had been in CODIS since 1993. As I've mentioned before, the CODIS DNA tests will in theory flag the system when a family member submits their own DNA along with a missing person report. I say in theory because there was one case I've covered so far where the flag didn't happen. I don't know if there was a problem with the DNA or why. But the family had submitted their own DNA and it was sitting in the database. It's not clear why that case was a problem, but generally if family members upload their DNA, it will come up with a match. I know it's confused people why there's DNA on file. Like this John Doe, his came from 1993. But it's not the right kind of DNA that they can do a genealogical search. It's why they have to go through the expense of exhuming the body once again and running a DNA test. In this case, it was Bode Technology. Bode Technologies is able to take the samples that were already pulled and they will retest for SMP, which I'm not sure what that is, and genome sequencing. Once it's done, they'll offer a report as to whether or not it's possible to get usable DNA or if they need a newer sample. The previous samples tend to degrade over time. I imagine this is probably the process with Othram Labs and others. So sometimes they're using already existing samples. In 2022, Lori Summers was elected coroner in Will County. She's a huge proponent of working the cold cases using genome sequencing, and she chose to partner with Othram Labs in order to develop a DNA profile that they could submit to the family tree DNA. And this actually did lead to an identification after 50 years. Othram Labs helped with crowdfunding for the cost, and they identified the decedent as Donald Rozek. He was from Harvey, Illinois. His age isn't available, but we know he was an Army veteran. Donald was eventually identified thanks to a match with his nephew. The nephew would eventually explain that Donald went missing around 1971 or 1972, although none of this helps to explain why he came to be in that creek bed. For whatever reason, it appears that Donald was never reported missing. The sheriff's office is still investigating this case, so please call the number on your screen if you can in any way help trace Donald's movements. Donald Rozek went missing 49 or 50 years ago. He was an unidentified John Doe for 47 years. As always, thank you so much for watching. The current goal for the channel is 20,000 subscribers. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss new episodes. Thank you so much to everybody commenting. Even with just an emoji, it really has made a big difference. Without it, there isn't a channel, so thank you guys so much. Take care of yourselves and each other.